Welcome back. I'm Chelsey Morrow here with Razorback Nation sports reporter Alyssa Orange. Alyssa, you were telling me how you graduated from Florida State with a degree in media productions.
Yep.
How did you find your love for broadcasting?
Well, it started when I was a kid. My dad worked in television, so I kind of grew up in a television station, and he would drag me around to things. When he was working late, I'd sit in the edit bays with him working, or I would sit there and watch him edit stuff. And so I've kind of been around TV my whole entire life, and I played sports. And so when I got to high school, I kind of wanted to combine the two, and started kind of doing some stuff very similar to this. It was just called Sports Wire at my high school. It wasn't as big, it wasn't as detailed as this was, but did some stuff for the football team and really got really interested in that. And then when I went to Florida State, I could do mass media or I could do media production. And media production was behind the scenes. So I learned camera, audio, lighting, video. Those were literally my classes. And so I learned how to do all that behind the scenes stuff, which really helped me out in the long run, because now in this business, you're doing everything yourself. So that's kind of how it started, and kind of just developed into where I am right now.
And how has it been working in a field that's dominated by men?
It's been fun. I've kind of always had guy friends. I was kind of one of the guys. I played softball, hung out with a lot of the baseball team, and so it's pretty easy. I'm used to being around guys, but it definitely has its challenges. When I first got my first sports job, I remember my news director in Tallahassee sitting me down and saying, I'm going to let you know a word of advice. You are going to have a harder road than any male in this business. Let's say that you're on TV one day and you accidentally pronounce someone's name wrong. Well, our main anchor, who's a man, could do the same thing, and people at home would just be like, we knew what he meant. If you make the same mistake, I'll get phone calls saying, take that girl off our TV. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And so you kind of have to break that barrier, and I think you have to work a little bit harder for people to kind of trust you and to trust that you know what you're talking about. But once you get that trust, it's pretty easy. I remember joking that once the riders around town when I moved here knew my name, I'd made it. Because if the riders know your name and joke around with you, they respect you, and that's a big deal.
And how hard was it to initially break into the field as a woman?
I think it kind of just depends. It's such a growing market right now where a lot of women want to get involved, and a lot of people want that diversity on their sports team, that if you can apply for a job that doesn't have a female, you kind of have the edge, because they're looking probably to add that female element. However, on the flip side, if they already have a female, they're probably not going to hire two females at this point. So I think it kind of just really depends on where you're applying and who is and what they're really looking for. But it's not as hard now as it used to be, I think.
And what has been the most difficult part for you?
I think, difficult part for me, I don't necessarily say it's difficult, because I think it comes with the job, but I think you as a female in this business have to be almost over-prepared for things. Learn the football program, learn the coaches' names, learn the players' names, learn the record, learn the history. Obviously, the men are doing the same thing, but you want to make sure when you go into an interview or when you go in to a market like this. When I moved here, for example, I knew nothing about Arkansas. I had never been to the state of Arkansas. I had never watched an Arkansas football game. I just really was very unaware of the culture and the program and the history. So I really dedicated myself to making sure I knew what was going on, I knew the history, I knew the players, and so I don't think that's difficult necessarily, but I think, again, as I mentioned, you want, as a female, to be knowledgeable. You have to put in the extra effort to make sure that you know what you're talking about and you're aware. And when you go into an interview group, an interview session where there's all of these different writers, I'm usually the only female in the room. So I want to make sure I'm asking, educated questions and not questions where they're going to look at me and the guys are going to be like, what are you talking about? So you definitely want to be prepared.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I kind of want to ask you about a different side of your broadcast experience. I'm sure you've met some pretty cool people along the way.
I have.
Who has been your favorite person that you've met so far?
Well, if I have to be biased, I'd have to say Bobby Bowden. When I was in school, I worked with him and got to interview him a lot, and obviously a very legendary coach in college football, and it was really cool to get to know him right before he retired. But when I was in Texas before I moved here, I got to interview like Too Tall Jones and Randy White, who are some Cowboys. And it's funny because obviously big time Cowboy names, everybody knows who they are. And I was doing interviews with them, and they are just huge men. But you don't realize it until you take a photo and you're about as big as Too Tall Jones's thigh. And you're like, oh, okay, you really are actually big. That was kind of cool. And I got to show that. I have unfortunately, a lot of friends who are Cowboys fans. So I got to show them. So it was pretty cool though. That was an experience I won't forget.
And what has been your most memorable interview?
Most memorable interview. Let's see. Golly, that's kind of hard. There's definitely ones. Jerry Jones was pretty cool because everyone knows who Jerry Jones is. But I think there was one. This is so bad. But there was one, I was interviewing a player, and I think I remember it the most because he made up a word. And I just remember being like, that's not a word, but okay. But he was really cool, and he was just a high school kid who was playing, who had committed to UCF. And he was pretty funny, and I can't remember the word that he made up right now because he kind of put me on the spot. But it's something to where, like, when I tell people about funny interviews, this is always the one that pops up into my head, and it was pretty funny. And I might have put that on TV because he made it up, and I thought it was funny.
And now as we wrap it up, I just kind of want to talk to you about your position at Razorback Nation. What's been your favorite part working in Arkansas?
I think it's been kind of covering a team. I think what's so unique about what we do at the Razorback Nation is we only cover Arkansas. So we've gotten a really good opportunity to learn the team, learn the coaches, build those kind of connections and bonds, which is very rare. Usually you're covering high school and college and NFL and maybe some minor league stuff to where you're so spread out you really don't get to build relationships with those coaches. But I think it's really been fun to get to know Coach Bielema and Coach Anderson and Coach Van Horn closely because I see them all the time during their seasons. But also traveling. I mean, I don't think that I had ever really been to an SEC school until I got here. And I think the only schools I've yet to visit is Kentucky and A&M. And I think that might be it because we travel so much and we travel to all the away games. And so I've gotten to see SEC campuses and that's been really fun. And to get to kind of go to all those schools that, again, I went to an ACC school. So I had never, I don't really go to SEC stadiums when I was in college. So that's been pretty fun. What's
been your favorite campus that you've visited so far?
Ooh, I really like Baton Rouge. Sorry, guys. I really think that LSU was really pretty. And I liked LSU, and Oxford was really pretty too. I think for two different reasons. I think Baton Rouge, and I love Cajun food, so I was all about it, and I thought it was neat. But Oxford's kind of a small town, and the stadium and the school is right there, and it was really pretty in the fall when we went. So I guess those are my top two. Sorry, guys.
Well, thank you so much, Alyssa. For Alyssa Orange, I'm Chelsey Morrow. We'll be right back.